Hi, everybody. Hi. Thanks so much for coming through. So my name is Enongo Lumumba-Kasongo. I'm also a producer and rapper who goes by the name Sammus, from my favorite video game character. And yeah, so I am going to give a talk. So let me start that talk. So I found my way to video games through their music. When I was a child, I remember connecting viscerally with the music of Sonic the Hedgehog. It was the first music I had ever heard or paid attention to that had no words. And I loved that it played over and over again in a loop, allowing me to learn every single bit of its composition. I felt like it was mine. Later, one of the first tools I used to produce beats was the PlayStation game MTV Music Generator, which I first used by sampling from the game's library and later used to tap out original pieces of production one note at a time. Even later, I took on the moniker Sammus from the classic video game Metroid because of my love for her and the way she troubled stupid gendered ideas about technical knowledge and power. Still, when I was first asked about giving a keynote talk, I was pretty nervous. I've never designed or developed a video game, and I've provided 2 songs for video game soundtracks. I've only streamed a few times. Usually when I'm invited as a speaker, the conversation is geared towards a discussion of the ways that I managed to keep it all together, given the demands of having a career as a producer and rapper and also getting my PhD, which I forgot to mention. I'm also getting my PhD at Cornell University in the Science and Technology Studies Department. Oh, you don't have to clap. It's a very foolish decision. Do not recommend. So, yes, given the demands of both careers. So today I was going to frame my talk around ideas of empathy. However, late last night I discovered a mouse, which I'm deathly afraid of, in my hotel room, and had a panic attack and escaped to Brooklyn and left my laptop on the bed, so I didn't have a chance to revise the talk the way that I wanted to. But that's okay, because I was able to rework a talk that I really like about how I found my voice as an artist, both in terms of my style and quite literally in terms of my embodied voice. And the talk does kind of touch on empathy and how it plays a role in my music. So hopefully you all will stay tuned. So then I'll probably conclude the talk with a little performance of some of my music. I can still, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm like, okay, awesome. So when I first started rapping in 2009, it was for my survival. At the time, I was a 4th grade math and science teacher in Houston, Texas, serving as a core member in the national teaching program Teach for America. I had graduated in 2008 with a double major in science and technology studies and sociology, but was unsure of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to serve communities of color in some capacity, so teaching for 2 years seemed like a great start. Yet here I was in Houston working as a teacher at a predominantly Black underserved school, barely holding it together, devastated by the incompetence of the educational system and plagued with daily health concerns. I had always veered towards the arts in times of crisis or stress. I'd been making beats since high school, as I mentioned, a practice that I learned from my older brother. But during this moment was the first time that I began to put words over the tracks. Making music gave me some control at a moment when I felt completely powerless. When I thought about what to write about, I was guided by thoughts of my students. I thought about the ways that they often struggled with retaining the content of my lessons, but knew entire musical catalogs from Michael Jackson and Lil Wayne verbatim. I thought it might be cool if I made rap songs about being a nerd and loving games and cartoons, and then kind of sliding in there the joy of studying hard to entice them to buy what I was selling. Working on music became so enjoyable after that initial experience that I began to explore my identity as a nerd in other ways, and then I also started exploring things like religion, colorism, a whole bunch of themes. So as I began to study the art of rapping, my perspective was largely shaped by the people around me who took an interest in what I was doing, mostly cis men, often hip-hop heads, who had very strong ideas about what rap should sound like. The DJ who helped me put together my first show insisted that I pay homage to the great women MCs at every one of my live shows. He also told me that what he liked about me was that I didn't talk about sex like so many other female rappers. He tried to dissuade me from using the N-word in my music and said I should avoid cursing as well because he found it to be vulgar. Interestingly, he never had that critique of any of the male rappers around him. I also recall one of my first experiences recording a song with an audio engineer, a friend who agreed to do some pro bono mixing and mastering for my first EP. He had laid down vocals for a new track and was feeling pretty good about my performance. Afterwards, he played it back and then asked me if I could try to sound a little more like Nicki Minaj in my delivery. When I asked him what the fuck he even meant by that, he shrugged and said, I don't know, just listen to Nicki Minaj and try to do what she does. So these kinds of conversations left me deeply confused about who I was going to be as an artist. And since those days, I've tried on a number of different hats. Even though I curse like a sailor, as I just kind of showed you, I did censor my mouth on my first EP, which I dropped in 2010. But by the time I dropped my first full-length album in 2012, I had completely stopped caring about offending listeners in that way. I spent my entire second album, which dropped in 2013, rapping in a slightly higher register because I thought that my natural register was too grating and it wasn't cute enough. But by the time I reached my next EP, a concept album about the video game Metroid that I dropped in 2014, I'd stopped caring about that as well. My favorite song, in fact, turned out to be a song in which I rapped in an even lower register than my natural voice. It was a liberating experience and one that showed how fun it was to play with my voice. Still, it wasn't until one EP and an album later that I really began to feel I had found a style of my own. It all really started to click after I released my latest album, a 12-track project entitled Pieces in Space that came out in October of last year. Since dropping the project, I've met with amazing praise from publications I could have never imagined kind of looking my way a year ago. Music writers from NPR to Pitchfork to ABC News have shown my work the kind of generosity I once only reserved for my heroes. Praise aside, the strangest part of the success has been seeing the similar ways that others describe my work to the uninitiated. To see different people with no real stake in my career repeatedly describing my work using the same words, Afrofuturistic, dynamic, sharp elements of Kanye, gave me the same catharsis I imagine scientists feel when receiving definitive results in a double-blind study. The person I felt myself to be was reflecting back through the art I was creating, and I was finally approaching something resembling a style, a distinctive space of my own on the crowded stage of indie rappers. So often when I used to ask artists the question of how they arrived at their voice or like their style, I received some variation of the notion that I should, quote, just be myself. Now that I'm the recipient of this question, I never give that answer. I find it to be not only dismissive, but also completely incorrect. First, it presupposes that everyone should produce music and art for the same reasons. For some musical artists, making art is about reflecting specifically on their lived experiences. But for others, it's about a creation of a new self. And for others still, it's about merging the two, which I was able to do through my Metroid project, where I spoke from the perspective of Sammus, but it was infused with this kind of Black feminist perspective. So a few months ago, I took an informal poll on Twitter in which I asked people the question, are you bothered by the practice of ghostwriting in rap? Does everyone know what ghostwriting is in rap music? Just somebody else writing the bars for the person who actually performs it. And usually the ghostwriter is not acknowledged in hip-hop circles. So 89% of the people responded, and the results were, 89 people responded, and the results were as follows. 31% said, yes, I'm always bothered by the practice of ghostwriting. 18% said, nah. 12% said they never really think about it, and 39% said it depends on the artist. So what are we to make of this? It's clear that music from certain artists resonates with people even when we know that the narratives they're telling are not their own. How can we evaluate this if simply, quote, just being ourselves is the key to finding one's voice? Clearly, this suggestion doesn't account for the full story. I also dislike the advice that artists should just be themselves because it erases the reflexive nature of what is being created. The fact that while you shape the art shapes you. Instead, it reduces the voice to being a unidirectional force that comes from a static self to mold a song or a piece of work into what it is, whereas I believe the voice is something that lives forever in a space between the artist and the product. So when I am asked the question of how to find your voice or how to find your style, I give a much shorter version of the talk I'm giving to you. I tell people to ask themselves what their values are. What I've come to realize is that finding our voice is just an exercise in identifying our values. And while authenticity regarding one's lived experiences, quote, just being yourself, may be one of those values, it may also not be. And when I'm speaking of values, I'm not speaking about moral ideals, but rather just things that we value, about how a thing sounds or how it feels. So I'd like to share with you some things that I value about how my art sounds or feels, a set of standards that has largely come to shape the way that I approach my academic work also. And these are the values of honesty, accessibility, and empathy. So there's empathy, yay. So honesty. In the introduction to Trisha Rose's seminal book, Black Noise, she argues, quote, "Rap music is a Black cultural expression that prioritizes Black voices from the margins of urban America." She goes on to speak about the complexity of rap's audience, noting, quote, "Black culture in the United States has always had elements that have been at least bifocal, speaking to both a Black audience and a larger, predominantly white context. Somewhere under the umbrella of Black culture, and often lost in these dialogues around Blackness and hip-hop until recently, has largely been the experience of Black folks who do not come from the, quote, margins of urban America," or a very sort of specific idea of what that means. So growing up in Ithaca, New York, a small college town in upstate New York, the daughter of 2 immigrant parents who were both professors, I didn't see my existence as one that could be reflected in hip-hop. And I've spoken to so many other folks who also felt this way, that hip-hop they never saw themselves as someone who could actively participate, who could only sort of passively take in what was happening. I didn't grow up listening to hip-hop beyond what was on MTV or the occasional CD my older brother brought home. Friends in high school introduced me to artists like Mos Def and Talib Kweli, but I was much more likely to be listening to Radiohead or Weezer or Bjork and Daft Punk on any given day. Mostly, though, I was enamored with the music of video games and began producing video game-like tracks using Reason and MTV Music Generator, as I noted, in the hopes of one day creating the soundtrack for a real video game. And then one night I heard Kanye West's Through the Wire, the first single from his groundbreaking album College Dropout. When I heard Kanye for the first time, I dropped everything. Where Mos Def and Talib Kweli had opened up the world of hip-hop to me as a listener, College Dropout opened up the universe of rap to me as a musician. Suddenly, it was okay to talk about being anxious about going to college, about being stressed while working at the Gap. Immediately, I began producing sample-based beats using GarageBand and trying to copy Kanye West's classic chipmunk soul style. It would be many years before I graduated from just producing to rapping as well, but when I did, I had Kanye's kind of distinctive voice in my mind. Couched within my love and emulation of Kanye was the discovery of my first value as an artist, the value of honesty, of telling the truth. As I mentioned above, authenticity regarding one's lived experience is not a value that every great artist must adhere to. Considerable fuss was made about whether Beyoncé's latest project, Lemonade, was in fact about her relationship with Jay-Z or not. The debate about the authenticity of the story in regards to her relationship did not seem to change the fundamental goodness of that project for anybody. And despite the lay knowledge that rapper Rick Ross has not lived any of the grand stories that he manufactures on his very luxurious sounding records, it's kind of clear that he still has an effect. My partner has told me how much he loves to listen to Ross when he needs to get hype for navigating throughout the day. I would say that what matters for most listeners then is a more broad understanding of authenticity, that an artist is able to be honest regarding the spectrum of human experiences. Listening to Kanye made me want to do more than that, though. I wanted to tell the truth, not just about what it means to be human, which again, I think is what is required to tell exceptional fiction, as many artists do. I desired to learn how to tell the truth about what it means to be me. I knew from the moment I heard him that I wanted to be an artist who a Black girl, big nerd, first-gen kid, avid gamer, so many other things. Telling the truth is not always easy. And I joke that that's maybe the one area in which the president and I agree. It has meant sharing past dealings with suicidal ideation, admissions of failure in my personal and professional life, stories of sexual assault. It has also meant dealing again with other people's ideas about what rap should and shouldn't be. I've been advised by friends and even some music industry folks alike to stop employing, quote, the gimmick of video games in my music, as though I'm not referencing video games and cartoons so frequently because they're an essential frame of reference in my real life. Still, challenging as telling the truth may be, living by this value has helped me to produce some of the best art I've ever made. Telling the truth has also meant developing a self-awareness that has forced me to interrogate my perspectives and my privilege, and it has involved many missteps. On my first album in 2012, I wrote a song called A Woman, in which I speak candidly about my experiences interacting with men as a Black woman. It catalogs heartfelt reflections about racism, colorism, and misogynoir, alongside my deep desire to simply be understood by the men around me. The chorus reads, I'm a woman, I'm a woman, Come and take my hand, love me as I am, I'm a woman. But there are lines in the that now make me uncomfortable. At the end of the first verse, I state, quote, "It's so hard just to be black with a double X chromosome," a line that was supposed to note how hard it is to be both black and a woman at times. But as I have matured and my audiences and my friends have grown to include many trans and non-binary individuals, I've grown in my understanding of this line's limitations and implications. Most notably, I'm now deeply aware of the fluidity in our biology around sex. It's something I will always keep in my mind as I write in the future. Additionally, in much of my earlier music, where I once saw myself expressing so-called conscious lyricism, I now see a perspective mired in respectability politics. In one of my songs from my second album, a track called Growing Up, I talk about the ways that people should behave as they get older, namely that they shouldn't be going to the club, among other things. In a more recent song of mine called Time Crisis, I critique these same ideas about the policing, specifically of women's actions as a function of their age. Ultimately, telling the truth as a production value means being willing to have difficult conversations openly and push back against myself when necessary. And so I don't ever perform that song anymore just because it doesn't align with where I am anymore. And so that's a decision I think that artists have to kind of come to with their own work, being willing to let go of things and push back against themselves. The second value is accessibility. So the next value that I've developed regards the importance of accessibility in my music. This value is one I have greatly struggled with, as it is often confused with its cousin, relatability. In an article in The New Yorker entitled, quote, "The Scourge of Relatability," Rebecca Mead speaks about the myriad problems with valuing, quote, relatability as a measure of one's work. She notes, quote, "To demand that a work be relatable expresses a different expectation, that the work itself be somehow accommodating to or reflective of the experience of the reader or the viewer. The reader or viewer remains passive in the face of the book or movie or play or game. She expects the work to be done for her. If the concept of identification suggests that an individual experiences a work as a mirror in which he might recognize himself, the notion of relatability implies that the work in question serves like a selfie, a flattering confirmation of an individual's solipsism. Indeed, notions of, quote, relatability have been leveraged by the elite in various forms of entertainment as a means of gatekeeping. They argue that somehow telling the stories of anybody but straight, thin, quote, conventionally attractive cis white people will be too much of a stretch to be viable for mass consumption. So when I speak of accessibility, I want to make sure I'm rejecting this idea of relatability. I like to make music that lifts up the experiences of Black people, women in particular, of nerds and geeks, queer folks, but I also make music to challenge people. In 2014, I wrote an article for the Black feminist publication For Harriet, in which I discussed my growing anxiety about the N-word. In the article, I argued the following, quote, "Recently I have become quite obsessive as it relates to checking the meaning of my words, a somewhat paranoid response to the growing social media presence around my music career. While I am overjoyed about expanding my network of supporters, every new Facebook like, Twitter follower, and Bandcamp purchase also serves as a reminder that I have less agency over the interpretation and use of the words I have written and recorded. In turn, this realization has forced me to think more deeply about what it is I've actually been saying, particularly in the context of nerdcore rap music, which is a hip-hop subgenre to which my work has been closely tied, and one in which the majority of both its fans and most of its well-known MCs are white straight cis men. Although there are some notable exceptions, it's safe to say that any explicit dealings with race around topics as charged as the politics of the N-word have never really been addressed. I often wonder how my words are understood in this scene, as they are so intimately connected to my Blackness. I've also begun to think about the frequency with which I've seen audience members mouthing my words during performances. The first time I witnessed this phenomenon, I was caught so wholly off guard that I temporarily forgot my words. These days, however, my excitement is usually tempered by my recollection of a video clip in which I'd seen circulating last April, or that April when I wrote this, in which a Coachella concert camera flashes to a white audience member while he emphatically sings "nigga" along with The Weeknd and presumably most of the audience during Drake's set. I now wonder whether that's happened at any of my shows. To be clear, I have no judgments about Black rappers who use the word in their music, nor do I feel a way about those who intentionally do not. Additionally, my growing ambivalence around using nigga is in no way connected to the comfort of nerdcore's primary fan base. Making my music palatable and safe for non-Black people has never been my intent. If anything, my driving force has often been a desire to engender difficult conversations between people who have never thought about Blackness in the context of their favorite fandoms. On my project, Another M, which is a concept EP devoted to the classic video game Metroid, I use the word nigga as a way of establishing voice, a reminder that my experience of the game, even in my role as a raconteur, has always been mediated through the eyes of a self-aware Black person in a space not designed for her. So for me, accessibility to my music is not about making everybody feel included and safe. Instead, it has emerged as a value in relation to my understanding of the ways that the worlds I'm operating in, namely hip-hop spaces and geek spaces, prioritize expertise. Straight, white, cis, able-bodied men's expertise. In hip-hop circles, women's contributions are routinely overlooked, strangely categorized, or unreasonably exalted. I've started calling a lot of the men rappers that I like my favorite male MC because of how often I'm told by people that I'm one of their favorite female rappers. And in geek spaces, many of these same people police the boundaries of who gets to be an expert. Sometimes, in my experience, labeling women who simply exist in geek and nerd spaces as, quote, fake geek girls. As I mentioned, my name, Sammus, draws on the video game character Samus Aran, one of the first playable women characters in a video game. It was only revealed to be a woman at the end of the game after you've spent hours whooping Intergalactic behind. I picked the name largely because I was questioned so frequently by the men around me about whether I had made my own beats that it felt like the perfect moniker to represent my struggle. I say all that to say that I did not want to reproduce those awful dynamics around expertise in my art. To that end, I made a point of transcribing all of my lyrics and sharing them through the website Rap Genius with annotations. In that way, the academic practices of citation that I've learned prime me to see this as a necessary endeavor. I know many rappers who find the politics of Rap Genius to be a problem. For some, it destroys the mystery around their work. Others believe that if an artist has to transcribe their lyrics, it means they're not a good enough lyricist. They didn't pick smart enough references. But I want to be understood, or rather, I really don't want to be misunderstood. Annotating my lyrics has been both a way to invite more people into the conversation that I'm having and to protect myself from wild misinterpretations and assumptions. Although I should add that I've encountered people on Rap Genius who have tried to correct my own annotations about my music. Like, that's not what she was saying. Like, yes, that is what I was saying. So I named my most recent album Pieces in Space to reflect a line from the classic Metroid video game at the end where they call for true peace in space. But for me, I'm talking about that as a recognition that the pieces I write have to be released into the universe at some point to be refracted and reinterpreted in a million different ways. And at the very least, I want to provide people with as many tools as I can for helping them to make sense of my music. So this might be a practice that others find useful for kind of the creation of games, just providing that link for people who don't know what's going on or have never been invited into spaces where they're allowed to play games, where they're thought of as people who can do that, how they might be able to access what you're trying to create. And finally, empathy has become a very important value for me. As is the case with ideas around accessibility, I think empathy, unfortunately, is often co-opted by, quote, well-meaning and not so well-meaning folks who believe that the divisions we experience in this country and globally could all be solved if only everybody had a little more empathy. I have no empathy for people who would rather see me or us dead, period. But I do think it's important to think about how people who want to change but don't yet understand how might be a part of this conversation. I'd like to think I've become a more empathetic person through my music, and my hope is that my music makes my listeners more empathetic. I've always been someone who was deeply affected by other people's energies, and I know so many of the rest of you are as well. But I really committed myself to the idea that empathy would be central to my production values after I began examining the music I listened to both actively and passively. A few years ago, I'd find myself blasting the music of rappers who regularly demeaned women, particularly dark-skinned Black women. I'd also catch myself nodding my head to music from artists whose lyrics and/or interviews I would later come to recognize as being layered in homophobic and transphobic undertones. I think about this past February when Migos, arguably one of the biggest rap groups in the country, called rapper I Love McConaughey's decision to come out, quote, whack, implying that McConaughey had been deceptive because he, quote, first came out talking about rapping and selling Molly, because evidently you can't be gay and sell drugs. I think about the fact that the biggest song of the summer, Bodak Yellow, is explicitly influenced by Kodak Black, one of countless rappers who has made a point of praising light-skinned and white women while downing dark-skinned women, arguing that he, quote, don't like black bitches, I like yellow hoes. I began wondering why I would subject myself to music with words that would be considered abusive and hateful in any other context. More to the point, that line of inquiry led me to think deeply about my own music and how I could create a safe space for those who are chronically abused and overlooked everywhere, from song lyrics to street corners. Around the same time I began thinking about this, a friend of mine and a cultural critic who goes by the name Son of Baldwin began sharing my music on his page alongside other rappers he celebrated for not being queer antagonistic and misogynist. I was happy to be included in this discussion, but very saddened to read so many of the stories shared by his supporters detailing the ways their communities had been disparaged by artists they once loved and trusted so much. More folks are listening to me, so I committed myself to listening more, to the experiences of other people, to the things that hurt them, to the passive and casual ways through which we inflict pain on the most vulnerable amongst us. And so I encourage you, if you're someone who has any position of privilege, to think about how you might engage in your own work with these same kind of dynamics. So I'll conclude just by saying that I'm so grateful to GaymerX for helping me to find my voice, for offering this space for me to continuously challenge myself and hear these wonderful testimonies of how gameplay has allowed people to find themselves and experience their most authentic experiences. So I'll conclude with, I guess, a little rap performance, if that's okay. Is that good? Great. Yeah. And then I guess I'll leave a little time at the end. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'll just rap until someone has questions. Just like raise your hand and I will stop the song that I'm doing. So yeah, I will start off with a song that I think a lot of us will kind of relate to. It's a track about kind of my experience growing up, little black girl, loving games and cartoons, but not seeing myself reflected in the stuff that I loved. And so I made this track called Perfect Dark, named after the game Perfect Dark, to talk about that. So here it is. I'm gonna, and I can stand here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm playing it right now. Check, check. Black girls wanna have a hero too. Yeah, yeah. Black girls wanna have a hero too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Black girls wanna have a hero too. Yeah. While Dora exploring, they was important from Gore, and now 400 years later, they cut us all out the story. When they couldn't ignore us, they gave us Bishop and Barrett. But we're the women with origins from a black colored parent. We got Aurora Monroe, she kinda fly like a fairy, but really Storm ain't enough. I don't look like Halle Berry, they got their characters tailored to Farrah Fawcett's appearance. Even when they brunette, they favor Tifa or Eris. I ain't a nigga in Paris, I'm just a brown girl from upstate. A brown girl from upstate, a brown girl from upstate. Where blacks is a rare thing from Monday till Sunday. Chitara, I loved her, but she ain't look like my mother. So when I had to see color, I went to view Gullah Gullah. We got Sailor Moon, Mercury, Saturn, and Mars, and not one of them burgundy colored at all. It's that kind of thing hurting me. When I was small, I thought I had got third-degree burns all along. It's like black girls want to have a hero too. All kids trying to get that mirror view. Cartoons gotta represent my hue. It got our doctors sick, they woke up that raw flu. Black girls wanna have a hero too. All kids trying to get that mirror view. Cartoons gotta represent my hue. It got our doctors sick, yeah. Do any other black kid think it's all wrong? That Super Saiyan status make them all blonde, blue-eyed. It's odd, yeah, it's something like an oblong. It's got me lost like I'm gone without my time, ha. You probably think I'm reaching, but when I started sketching, the first thing I could think of was drawing yellow tresses over pink-skinned faces, red cheeks and painting, big tits and lace, and I'm envious of her race. You got a black girl sketching out Aryans based on an experience with various variants of comic books and animes. The shit was getting serious.
Took a step back like professors that's emeritus. Yeah, I finally got a smile, all the bad thoughts abandoned me. Mama taught me how to be proud like the family. Had to wait until I saw that I'm a work of art. I love the game, but I'm the realest kind of perfect dark. Yeah, black girls want to have a hero too. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any questions yet? Okay. You can ask about like the talk or music or, oh, whoops. Sorry. Cool, so if there aren't questions, and again, just wave your hand and then I'll stop the song. But this is a track about complexity called Mighty Morphing that I often perform. And kind of going back to what I was discussing in the talk with people misinterpreting my words, with this song, it's not a song that I wrote because I want to say, wow, I'm so exceptional because I like A Wrinkle in Time, or I like to play video games. I think a lot of folks interpreted it as me saying, wow, look at me, I'm such an anomaly. That's not what I was saying. I was saying that black folks are complex. We all like to do lots of different things. That it shouldn't be a surprise that I like to do all those things. That any black person you talk to has multiple interests that cross all kinds of different identities and spaces. And I was tired of folks looking at me like I was like a magical being. And so I wanted to respond to that. And I just want to make that clear because whenever I perform that song, I think it's misinterpreted. So maybe I need to go back to Rap Genius and like annotate a little bit better. But who knows, they might re-annotate it. So here we go. Yeah. Can you see me? Hey, as a little kid, wasn't really rap tight. Yeah, they always said I was trying to act white, even though I'm black like night without a flashlight. Guess they'd rather have me dragging on the crack pipe. Don't enunciate, or you want Oreo. Drink Cavassier, do a little choreo. Better not be corny though. Better start the party like you Mario. Yeah, entertain me like the Maury Show. Don't get me wrong, I swear I really love to dance. And when I'm home, I get jiggy in my underpants. Yup, I pretend I'm popping rubber bands. I will clap my booty like I've got a pair of other hands. Damn, and if I really feel the beat, I get damn, like when I'm hearing Billie Jean. Got my drink and my two-step, no respectability. Move my back to some future like my favorite trilogy. Then on Tuesday, listening to shoegaze. 2 days later, I'll be shaking it to 2 Chainz, souffle, jiggling to Lupe. Batman and I'm Bruce Wayne. If it don't compute, then I'm chucking up the deuce. I'm not one thing, I'm not 2 things. I'm not 3 things, no, I'm not 4 things. I am more things than I'm reporting. Let's not force it. I'm mighty morphing. Yeah, I'm not 1 thing. I'm not 2 things. I'm not 3 things. No, I'm not 4 things. I am more things than I'm reporting. Let's not force it. I'm mighty morphing. And if you wanna kick it like punting, better get 1 thing straight. I'll run things, K. I can fill a couple seats at my shows. I don't play, cause I shuffle to the beat of my own 808s. Yeah, I let my hair breathe. I let my fro bounce. I'm feeling carefree, then I get a blowout. Till next week. Box braids. They gon' stress me cause I'm looking foxy. I like to wear about 4 packs. They say my hair grows so fast. Yeah, they appear to know no blacks. So when I hear them, I roll past. I put a filter on low pass, don't ask. Yeah, I'm a higher order organism. I enjoy E40, but I also fuck with Joy Division. I desire a shorty I can talk into a poor decision. I love a conversation all about the 4th dimension. A Wrinkle in Time was my favorite book. I remember age 9 was insatiable. Yeah, at the table nook, other kids were saying, look. And I knew that when I grew up, I would say the hook. I'm not 1 thing, I'm not 2 things. I'm not 3 things, no, I'm not 4 things. I am more things than I'm reporting. Let's not force it. I'm mighty morphing. Yeah, I'm not 1 thing. I'm not 2 things. I'm not 3 things. No, I'm not 4 things. I am more things than I'm reporting. Let's not force it. I'm mighty morphing. Black girl rock. Black girl mosh. Black girl program on your Macintosh. Black girl winning those Olympic props. Black girl blot to make her lipstick pop. Black girl rock. Black girl mosh. Black girl program on your Macintosh. Black girl winning those Olympic props. Black girl plot to make her lipstick pop. So you can like to twerk, and you can like to read, and you can like to play video games, and you can like to have a lot of sex, and you can like to have no sex at all, and you can like to play sports, and you can like to wear your hair short, and you can like to wear your hair long, and you can like to wear makeup, and you can like to wear skirts or shorts or skirts or nothing at all. None of those things define you. Anybody who denies you your complexity is not your friend. They are your enemy. Get rid of them immediately. Thanks, you guys. I'll do it like 2 more, okay? Cool. Question?
Yeah. So, I guess the one thing that I just want to ask was about going back into your art and reflecting on that and kind of like letting it go. Like, what was the hardest thing about like learning how to separate from things you've created before and like as you grow, kind of, okay, this is who I was before, but that doesn't define who I am.
Wow. Okay. So, to kind of repeat the question was what's the most challenging thing about let me put this down. What's the most challenging thing about making that separation as you kind of grow and change, and the art that you made before doesn't necessarily speak to where you're at, like the new place that you are? Is that okay? I mean, it's challenging in a few different ways. I think it's challenging because like the songs that I spoke about in my talk, like they exist in the world, in the universe. Like I can rip them off Bandcamp, but they're physically on CDs. And so I think that it's challenging because it sort of bothers me that, it bothers me, but I think it's also important that they exist. It's a reminder always that like we're infallible, or that we're not perfect, and that growth is possible, that change is possible. I would say, the hardest part. It's like, it's actually relatively easy for me to let go of stuff because I'm always like, oh, that wasn't good. And then I'm like, okay, I don't want to think about it ever again. Just kidding, that never happened. Yeah, I would say just like the defensiveness that might come with like protecting a piece of work that you worked on, and knowing like, oh, I came at this with sort of great intentions. I think working through that defensiveness is the most challenging thing, like recognizing like it doesn't actually matter. Like if you are like harming people or people feel, to not start from the premise of how it affects you. If you make something that you feel like doesn't reflect who you are or where you're at anymore. So working through that defensiveness, which I don't have any great advice for how to do that. I think it's just time and yeah, time and good conversations. I'm sorry, that wasn't a fantastic answer. Oh, thank you. She said she thought it was. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I like truly don't know. It's interesting to me. I mean, somebody, I had this like, oh shit moment when someone, she wrote a paper for a class, and she was like, I included Mighty Morphin in my kind of critical analysis, and I thought, oh my God, that's so cool. Like somebody wrote about me, wow. But then in her analysis, she kind of revealed that she was like, what I like about you is that you're pushing for like representations that you say you don't smoke crack, so that's what makes you cool. And I was saying like, no. What I'm trying to say is that there are multiple, there are different kinds of black folks that exist in the world, or that black folks can have multiple kinds of representation. So I think it's not to demean anyone who is dealing with substance abuse, right? That wasn't the intent of the line. The intent was to say like, this is one depiction that is like commonly kind of shown in popular media. It would be awesome to see a different one. So I think it's like in those ways where people, it's getting like misconstrued, but I'm not sure. It could just be an issue of audience, because when I perform that track in front of like predominantly black audiences, they're just like, yep, yeah, we 100% what you're saying. So I think that maybe for some folks, it's like their first engagement with these ideas. And so their first inclination is to say, wow, that was really special and unique. That's not happening anywhere else. So I don't know. It's frustrating, but people get frustrated with me, I think, because I talk so much in my sets, but I do that because I want people to know exactly what I'm talking about and not walk away with the idea that I'm like demeaning other women or saying I'm so cool and special, look at me. Like, no, we're all fucking special and awesome. So yeah. Really? Thank you. Oh, I forgot to repeat the question. The question was, how do people misconstrue Mighty Morphine when I go to such great lengths to like explain what the song is about? That was what I was answering. Are there any other questions? Okay, I can do a song about feelings. No, I'll do a song about how irritated I am when people are shitty on the internet, because my friend Tanya's here, and I always perform the song for her. So this is a song that I made about how irritated I was with people being racist and sexist and queer antagonistic and all of the other terrible things that people decide to be online and online spaces. So it's called Comments Disabled, and I hope that you'll enjoy. And one of the folks who, from the Mary Sue, complimented this song because she was like, I love that it's so angry. Like, you're not trying to, like, make friends with people. Games too, yeah, I beast on them. Sega too, yeah, I be Sonic. In my day-to-day, I stay playing Bay. They be hating me, cause I'm me, sorry. Tickle pink like I'm Majin Buu. Call me Cage, take your pick. Nick, Lucas, and Johnny too. I do a split, then I'll break your dick. But in real life, I'm real nice. Flexing hard cause I feel like I've been holding back about all the flack, and online attacks got me real tight. You wanna preach about Gamergate? Let's reconvene at a later date. You really wishing someone would listen? Now take a seat and some Gatorade. You are so parched on the internet. Got no regard, I'm not feeling cats who leave crazy comments. They acting jaundiced and way too fond of inventing facts. They leave rape threats in your mentions. They give big ups to their henchmen. When you kick them out, they make new accounts that are fake like some extensions. I'm thinking you should invest in collecting a best friend who won't let you press send to someone you just met through Twitter or Sirius XM. They're letting me have it. And yeah, they can pray for my absence. Through their habit of being an abscess, they be making me cash through my AdSense. Sorry, I'm not on right now. I'm logging off the internet. Leave a message, I won't call you back. Hit me up at 607-342-481607. 342 481. Sorry, I'm not on right now. I'm logging off the internet. Leave a message, I won't call you back. Hit me up at 607-342-481607. 342. Who hurt you? Did you have an early curfew? Had a crush but you wasn't in a purview? Had nobody you could turn to? Did it not occur to you that I'm a nerd boo? Yeah, I wanna be the same team. Seem like we excited about the same thing. Still, I would never type scathing, crazy hate to a page that I can't dig. Or are you one of those who do it for the lows? Do it for a high five from another troll? But then you wanna hide like playing MMOs? Cause no one ever knows who you are in the shows. I'm sorry your life isn't working out, but I promise that typing a hurtful thought will not solve any plight you're concerned about. And I'd honestly like for your curtain call, like, take a bow, take a seat, thinking about the things you speak. Why you wish to get me pissed and fire up blitz like Pistol Pete? Your fandom's expanding, you're feeling abandoned. You think they are pandering, so you throw a tantrum and hide like a phantom while holding us ransom with terrorist banter that you pass as candor. You're really a landbird from Chef Colonel Sanders. Yeah, you writing a lot. I disable the comments. I ought to say thanks for your antics, cause if I think about it, you took all this time to compose such a long-winded fanfic. You're doing more work than my fans, kid. Logging off the internet. Leave a message, I won't call you back. Hit me up at 607-342-481607. 342 481. Sorry, I'm not out right now. I'm logging off the internet. Leave a message, I won't call you back. Hit me up at 607-342-481607. 342 4811607.
342-481607. 342-481607. 342-481607. 342-481. Thanks, y'all. Okay. I don't want to take too much more time. Any questions? Any other questions that came up? Oh. Woo. Okay, let me do a song about my feelings called The Feels. And it's about kind of this complicated dynamic, kind of going back to the talk, that it's challenging to write music that's really kind of deep and emotionally hits home, because like being in that space can be painful. There's a song that I perform called 1080p that I'll perform if I have time, that few of you have seen me perform, and I usually will end up crying at some point doing the song. It's really, really kind of raw and difficult to get through, and it reminds me of a really bad relationship, but then it's about kind of getting to the other side of that. And so, you know, it's great to be able to like pour yourself into a song, but I do want to say to folks who are like empaths to take care of yourself and protect yourself at times, and not always be invested in kind of pouring yourself out there to like take on other people's challenges when you're not feeling right yourself, which is, I think, the way a lot of us feel, you know, like, well, what can I do? How can I be best there for somebody when you're not being there for yourself? So I just want to put that little kind of asterisk on there. So this is a song called The Feels, about how artists often feel like they write their best music when they're in emotional distress, and how fans often feel like artists write their best music when they're in emotional distress, and how that's like really unhealthy. And I wish that like I've heard this critique of artists, like, she was better when she was like really sad and like broke and really unhappy in her life. And it's like, wow, that's like, yeah, I'm sure the art is wonderful, but let's value the people as well. So this is a track called The Feels. I got the feels, yeah. I got the feels. The realest rhyme that I ever wrote. I was dumb, tired, single, hella broke, bars written in my notepads. Now I'm rocking bars and I'm getting slow claps. Party people love my baggage. Let's establish that we're all addicts. For people in pain, we want a tale of revenge from someone who is unhinged. We want to get the syringe and shove it deep in the vein. So what does that mean for an author who cut their teeth as a pauper? Now they got cheese in their coffer. We love the grief that they offer. Geez, I'll keep it brief like a law firm. Listen, I think you gotta suffer for the art. Risk it for love and you gotta rough it like you bark. So the rest of the public will be uttering, oh my God, put the eggs in the bucket. Are you ready? No, on your mark, your feels. Ooh, get in your feels. Ooh, get in your feels, baby. Ooh, get in your feels. Now I got the feels. Now I got the feels. Now I got the feels, baby. Now I got the feels. Ooh, get in your feels. Ooh, get in your feels. Get in your feels, baby. Ooh, get in your feels. Ooh, get in your feels. Ooh, get in your feels. Ooh, get in your feels, baby. Ooh, get in your feels. Get in your. The realest rhyme that I ever spit didn't have a dime at the time. I remember it was rough. I was getting no cash. Till I had enough, I was Jenny Lopez. Nowadays I'm fitter, happier, more productive. I was ill at rapping, I was more seductive. I would kill it after I was offered nothing. When it didn't matter, it was all for love. And now I'm conflicted, I'm complicit. When I'm in my feelings, then I don't want to fix it. I spit the realest when I don't rock my thick skin. And I love my lyrics whenever drama kicks in. Sad living doesn't sound appealing. No, I don't want to, like I won't mic check. So when they tell me don't fight the feeling, I'ma learn kung fu so I can't fight back those feels. Ooh, get in your feels. Ooh, get in your feels, baby. Ooh, get in your feels. Now I got the feels. Now I got the feels. Now I got the feels, baby. Now I got the feels. Feels. Now I got the feels. Now I got the feels, baby. Now I got the feels. Ooh, get in your feels, yeah. Ooh, get in your feels, ooh, get in your feels, baby. Ooh, get in your feels. Thank you. I'll do 2 more and then I'll be done. 2 more songs and then I'll leave you to your devices. Cool. Any questions? Great. This is awesome. This is a really cool show experience. I don't usually get to like solicit questions from the audience and then like jump into a song and give a talk. So I just, again, this speaks to how awesome GaymerX is to provide a platform for me to do all of this cool stuff, and for you all for being here and being supportive. So I guess I'll give y'all an option. I can do a song from my Metroid project. I haven't done anything from that. Or I can do a song about imposter syndrome. So, yes, so I made a Metroid-inspired EP. Yeah. Okay, I see where you're gonna go. So cheer if you want to hear a song from the Metroid project. Cheer if you want to hear a song about imposter syndrome. Oh. All right, I'll do both and I'll wrap it up. Okay, so I don't have my trusty arm cannon with me, but I'm gonna do, I really like this song. This is a track called Mae Jemison, named after the first black woman in outer space, and I love to perform it because she's a... Question! Yes! Oh. Other folks know what it is. Yeah, if you come see me and I'm doing like a show and not like a conversation show. I have an arm cannon that's like 3D printed and painted over in resin. It's super cool. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the universe. So this is a track called, thank you for the question. The question was, I'm so bad at this. The question was, do you have an arm cannon? And that's what I was responding to. Yes? No. It's like paper. It's paper, but it's painted over with resin to make it hard. But it's just paper. So when I grab it, next time we're in the same space, you can totally like try on the arm cannon. It's very light. Any other questions? Cool. So this track is named after the first black woman in outer space. And for those of you who haven't played the original Metroid game, that's okay. It's all right. I always tell people that your friends shouldn't shame you for things that you don't know. They should teach you about those things. So actually, those people are not your friends if they're doing that. They're making you feel bad for not knowing stuff. And so this track is from that game. And what I need you to imagine is that instead of being Sammus, the producer, rapper, PhD student, I am Sammus, the intergalactic bounty hunter. And I have just received a call. Yes. Claps for Sammus. I just received a call from the Galactic Federation, and they're like, everything's fucked up, we need you to help. And I'm like, okay, I will do that. If you cut me a check, then they cut me a check. The check clears, and I decide to take on the mission. So that's how I would be as a bounty hunter. Okay? We had a panel yesterday about not working for free, so I'm not about to be out here in outer space for nothing. So yeah, I get the call, I decide to take on the mission, and that's the song.
Sammus.
That's them.
Emergency order. Defeat the Metroid of the planet Zebra.
Okay.
And destroy the mother brain.
Totally.
Mechanical life form.
Yeah, I'm a fifth element mixed with Mae Jemison. All these fake feminists pissed to say, jealous man telling me it's suicide. Well, it's do or die. I be fighting like Budokai for you and I'm the fifth element mixed with Mae Jemison. All these fake feminists pissed and stay jealous man telling me it's suicide. Well, it's do or die. I be fighting like Budokai for you and I gotta go. Federation on the phone. Solo mission, no audition for the role. I'm out the toe. I be anxious to attack and see that's why they chose me. Ain't a pussy cat. All these trolls look like Josie. Uggs never cold feet. Young still I'm OG. Someone who can run and choke a gun to the OT. Those who oppose me be loaded up on codeine or bro smoking dro drinking OZs of OE. Facing problems we won't escape if we bide our time. It's space pirates appropriating like Miley Cyrus. These These metroids invading us like a rhinovirus, trying to get inside of our craniums like some kind of sinus. When modern science can't fight it, they tap the pig cats. I'ma kick ass, making tricks snap like Kit Kats. Drop kicking hacks that I pimp slap like slick back, crack ribs, then laugh till my abs have a six-pack. On the fifth element, mixed with Mae Jemison. All these fake feminists pissed the stage. Jealous man telling me it's suicide. Well, it's do or die. I be fighting like Budokai for you and I. I'm the fifth element, mixed with Mae Jemison. These fake feminists pissed and stay. Jealous man telling me it's suicide. Well, it's do or die. I be fighting like Budokai for you and I. Hey, now I'm strapped in, feeling kinda trapped in the first class cabin. I'm the crew and the captain. I feel the blast, now I'm nervous, I'm gasping. Sky getting dark like reverse Michael Jackson. Next is the absence of gravity's attraction. My assets unlatched, it's their natural reaction. Zoom past the moon on the move like Judy Jetson. 2 frozen cubes, lemon juice, I'm sipping absinthe. Yeah, I made a couple drinks to take the pressure off. I heard that mother brain is crazier than Sephiroth. She like Mousers or Bowser, turned up to 1,000. I heard she's astounding, but I got that aim of Jesse James. You can call me Team Rocket. Doc and send those lambs straight to lay up in they pocket out of carbon like you probably. Y'all gon' get a molly whopping. Got you wondering who shot you while I'm jogging out the cockpit. On the fifth element, mixed with Mae Jemison. All these fake feminists pissed and stay jealous, man, telling me it's suicide. Well, it's do or die. I be fighting like Budokai for you and I. I'm the fifth element mixed with Mae Jemison. Feminist pissed and stay jealous, man, telling me it's suicide. Well, it's do or die. I be fighting like Budokai for you and I. Thanks, y'all. Okay, I got one more. I'm kind of stuck because I always close my set with one song, with a particular song. Stop. Sorry. With a particular song. But I did say that I was going to do this song on imposter syndrome. If you come up to me afterwards, I'll like email you the song about imposter syndrome. It's called Qualified, and it's really nice and beautiful and sad. But I want to leave you on like a high note. So I'm going to do a track called Love Song that I always do at the end of every single set. Thank you all so much for being here. This is really spectacular. It's been an amazing weekend. Yeah, I'm so honored to be here, and I just, I'm really kind of blown away with all of the cool things that I learned and all the amazing people that I met, and I'm so happy to see my friend Mars here. They're awesome. Yeah, so I'm just really glad to be here. Thank you for being so awesome, and I'll be around to chop it up. So here it is, Love Song. The beat don't change, so you're really gonna have to listen to my words. I'm gonna be walking around, is that okay? Is that okay? Yeah, this is a love song. You'll discover why in a second. Yo, I'm checking my text and I get a request for Sammus to give him a 10-minute set. I won't get a check, but I never reject. Whenever I could get a second to spit. At first I was reading the fine print, making sure that it's seeming alright. Then I saw words I did not want to find when I had noticed the theme of the night, and I was not a big fan of it, so I hit up my management. Yeah, I called him to cancel it. He told me to chill, I was tripping, I needed some cannabis. Like Sammus, just articulate what is the problem. I really can't figure out what's wrong. I told him, oh, look at you wildin'. They want me to give them a love song. If I look through my catalog, I don't make that kind of song. That ain't the shit that I'm on. You need to respond and you tell him I might be gone. He laughed and he told me that maybe it's time. Maybe this really a sign that I should engage with that four-letter word that I always be trying to deny. So I don't wanna ride it, wanna feel it. When the love dies, I won't have to deal with a love song that I can never hear. It's better for me when it all disappears. So wanna ride it, wanna feel it. When the love dies, I won't have to deal with a love song that I can never hear. Yo, love is a cliche. Can I honestly say something better than what I create with my beat tapes? I mean, it's a deep space. I don't have the tools or the vocab to give it the feeling we both have. When we lying in bed and it's sunny inside, though it rains every day in the forecast. How can I write about kissing you when I don't want to share it with anyone else? How can I talk about giving you parts of me that I never once gave to myself? How can I talk about coming? It's a feeling. How can I write about running? emotion. Cause you tried to joke out when I told you I might let someone else get the chosen. And we both by Andoja. Yeah, yeah. So I don't wanna ride it, wanna feel it. When the love dies, I won't have to deal with the love song that I can never hear. It's better for me when it all disappears. So wanna ride it, wanna feel it. When the love dies, I won't have to deal with the love song that I can never hear. It's better for me when it all disappears. So wanna ride it, wanna feel it. When the love dies, I won't have to deal with a love song that I can never hear. It's better for me when it all disappears. I don't wanna write it, I wanna feel it. When the love dies, I won't have to deal with a love song I can never hear. It's better for me when it all disappears. Go, yeah, yeah. It's better for me when it all disappears. Yeah, yeah. It's better for me when it all disappears. Yeah, yeah. It's better for me when it all disappears. Yeah, yeah. It's better for me when it all disappears. Yeah, yeah. It's better for me when it all disappears. GaymerX, it's better for me when it all disappears. Thanks, y'all. Thank you. Bye.